how to start a food truck in Nevada. So if you're looking to figure out and you want to know how to open a food truck in Las Vegas, then stick to this video all the way through the end. I'm going to give you some tips and pointers and what kind of permits and even the costs on how to get us started with a food truck in Las Vegas. And this is Food Truck Freaks on YouTube. All right, so welcome back to Food Truck Freaks. It's Damian Roberti, founder and CEO of Marketing Food Online. We are a food entrepreneurship channel. We have multiple channels here on YouTube. You can check out those links, of course, down below. But in this video, we want to get right to the point, as we always do with every video. We're going to let you know how to get a food truck started in Nevada. So, especially in Las Vegas, where there is a tremendous amount of opportunity, because, of course, it is a huge tourist area, and there's a lot of traffic going in and out. So, let's get started. Now, I'm going to go through some of the general basic permits and licenses that are always traditionally needed for food trucks. Then, more specifically, I'm going to get into some vending costs, the license fees in Las Vegas, so you'll have a good understanding. Now, like every video we do, we don't just do a video, we have a podcast. We also will have links down below in the descriptions directly to the Las Vegas page specifically set up for food trucks about licensing, the Las Vegas licensing mobile food vendor page. That'll help you even learn even more, and that is specifically from the state of Nevada. Now, let's jump right to it. Number one, you're gonna need a business license. Any type of mobile food business that you operate, actually any business in general, you gotta, of course, have a business license. Be sure to not operate your food truck without having one of these, and you can get that normally online. You can obtain a business license really simple through the state of Nevada's website and get that set up. Now, in order for you to do that too, you need to get your EIN, which is issued by the IRS. EIN stands for Employer Identification Number. This is going to be the specific set of numbers for your business. So for tax purposes, when you begin to file taxes and you begin to file your business taxes more specifically, you'll be able to do that under your EIN. That's going to be your food truck number, so the IRS knows who you are and what entity you are, okay? Next up, driver's license. If you're going to operate a food truck in the state of Nevada, of course, you got to have a valid license. Now, you might be thinking, well, Damien, that's a no-brainer. Well, believe it or not, any individual who's driving the vehicle needs to have on them at all times a updated legal driver's license. And of course, if you've got one or two employees and they're driving the vehicle without a license and you do get pulled over, that could cause some serious problems, not only for you, but for your food truck business. So it's different when you're driving, like in a car, maybe you forget your wallet at home, and that's not necessarily tied to your business. But if you're the owner of the food truck and one of your employees is driving around and doesn't have a valid license, that can cause some serious problems for your business. Be sure to always have valid driver's licenses, because mobile food business is just that. The mobility of it means that you're going to be on the road. It's not a brick and mortar. You don't have to have a driver's license to be operating a brick and mortar, obviously, from day to day. But from day-to-day operations for your food truck, be sure that you're on top of that and be sure everyone has a valid license. Okay, next up, seller permit. So food truck owners in certain cities and counties must apply for that seller's license, which allows them to actually buy food and other commodities at wholesale prices without paying tax on it. This is something that a lot of new food entrepreneurs, or even entrepreneurs in general, who are preparing food products are unaware of, but you can definitely get taxed twice. If you're buying ingredients and paying a tax, preparing your food, selling it through your food truck, then you're collecting tax on it, you're getting taxed twice, okay? So make sure that you get a seller's permit so you don't pay taxes twice. Next up, excuse me guys, food handler's permit. So a food handler's permit, many occasions, is going to be something that you go to an office, you're going to be issued this type of a test. You have to understand a food handler's permit is required in most cities and states for at least one or more employee of the food truck, okay? Before the permit is actually awarded, the city or the state may require one or more of the employees to undergo a food safety course. Normally, the course can be usually taken online, but in order for you to actually take the test, you have to go to a site that they'll tell you to go to, and then you have to be monitored and you have to take the test, okay? So make sure you get that as well. Permit from the Department of Health. So your food truck and even potentially the commissary where you're preparing your food, will need to be inspected by the health department, just like any other restaurant. So your local health department's evaluation and approval will ensure that the food that you're preparing is kept in a safe manner. So that's something that you got to be aware of, that in general, if you're preparing food either in a commissary kitchen, which is normally already inspected by the health department, in an insured facility, you want to make sure that you do it in one of them, okay? Fire certificates, fire inspections. Now, most states require also a fire inspection to ensure that your gas grill, your ranges, if you have a propane tank, however you have a gas generator, whatever the generators are hooked up to ensure that everything is actually wired properly and there are no issues. The fire inspection is there for that safety reason, okay? Because you got to keep in mind, driving a food truck around with that type of flammable material and equipment can cause a serious problem, obviously, for anybody if it gets into an accident. Now, let's get more specific, guys. What is it that you need in the state of Nevada to get going? Now, the fees. Let's go over the fees. So the initial processing fee for a business license is $50. They do have what's known as a semi-annual license fee based on the gross revenue. Okay, so the initial gross revenue and fee is $100. That's semi-annual. That means every 6 months. That is something you need to be aware of. Some states actually do it annually. It looks like Nevada actually does it just every 6 months, which, I don't know, sounds a little expensive when you do it every 6 months if it's not annual. So next up, we got health cards are required for all employees. You got to comply with all the health district regulations and display health permits on the food truck itself. Keep that in mind. That's very much similar to, I can attest to this because I had to do this when I had my Italian bakery. Any restaurant, food, cafe, or anything like that gets inspected needs to make sure all of them are on display, okay? So each new vehicle must be reported to the licensing along with a payment of a $50 processing fee for that. Mobile food vendors do not have any exclusive rights to areas in the street and public grounds. That's actually a good thing. So what that basically means is you don't have the right, you're not exactly, if you've given a certain area or if you pull up in a certain area and you park your truck, you may come back the next day and somebody may be there. That's not a space that's dedicated to you. It's not a space dedicated specifically to your food truck. So keep in mind that has to be, you have to be on the lookout for really good high traffic areas, but of course within the regulations, which I'm about to get into because they do have specific regulations set up on where you can park, by the way. Now, exceptions are mobile food vendors are not ice cream trucks which operate in residential neighborhoods. Okay, so obviously ice cream trucks are a little bit different. They go to neighborhoods. Food trucks traditionally don't drive around neighborhoods trying to sell hot tacos and hot dogs and burgers. So keep that in mind. All right, are there any special requirements for starting a food truck in Nevada? Yes. So health permit required for each vehicle. So if you've got a food truck and it becomes successful and you begin to kind of in a sense franchise it, or you yourself want to have 2 or 3 more of them because your area is very busy and you can do that, you need to make sure that there's a health permit for each individual vehicle that you register, okay? You also must provide description of the selling methods to be used and the nature of the products, which sounds like basically a menu. And actually, how are you're putting it together? What's the method to putting it together? So you need to provide that as well so they're aware of that. Now, I'm sure that if you begin to change your menu, you're gonna have to do some type of an updated list as well and let them know what the methods are for the new menu or the new item that you've got. Copy of a valid, unexpired Nevada vehicle registration for each vehicle. Of course, every year, I believe that's every year you have to register that, or at least make sure that it is up to date. Copy of the valid public liability and property damage insurance. Now, this actually protects the public against any claims for personal injury damages, property damages, or even potentially even death. I mean, hopefully that doesn't happen. But property damages which may arise out of or in connection with actually the operation of the vehicle, the food truck itself. So keep that in mind. You got to have a certificate too that must be provided prior to the issuance of the license for any additional vehicle that you may have in the city, and they shall be named as an additional insured. So keep that in mind too, that the city that you're operating in has to be listed as an insured, meaning that the city won't be held liable if your food truck gives somebody, gets somebody ill, somebody's hospitalized, or God forbid they have to, they pass away. So keep that in mind. Now, the city shall be named as an individual, as I mentioned. Notice and change in the coverage or cancellation shall not become effective until the city has 60-day prior written notice. So if you have the policy, it has to be $100,000 minimum for injuries, including death to any one person. $300,000 minimum for injuries as well. This is going to be your insurance policy for your food truck business, and a $25,000 for property damage for any incident that occurs. Now, if you get into having additional vehicles, they must be added by the submittal to an additional business license application. So that each one of them have to have their own business license. Now, this is kind of the side where you want to know what you can't do, because you want to be sure, obviously, you're excited about what you can, but be aware of the things that are limited within doing a food truck and creating a food truck business in Nevada, more specifically in Las Vegas, okay? Now, restrictions. So you cannot vend in any congested area where the operation of pedestrians or vehicle traffic. So obviously you can't park in the middle of a busy, this is kind of common sense, to be honest with you. If you're in the middle of a busy street, you don't want to just pull your truck over, block some lanes, and try to start selling tacos. That's obviously not good, and you're potentially going to get yourself fined, and police will probably end up having you moved immediately off of the street. Don't do that. So you cannot park also within about 1,000 feet of an outside perimeter of a school property during the hours of school while it's actually in session, or 1 hour preceding or after school periods. So obviously people coming in and coming out, getting their children, you got buses. You don't want to park a food truck in the middle of that congestion and end up either blocking or having some issues with buses and other family members who are picking up kids from school and dropping them off. So that kind of just that's common sense as well. Okay, cannot consume alcoholic beverages or have alcohol on the truck. So you yourself as the food truck owner or any of your employees, of course, cannot be intoxicated while you're actually driving a food truck around. The other thing is that you cannot vend within 1,000 feet of a licensed concession stand located within a park when the stand is open for business, unless under a contractual agreement with the city. This means that that specific concession, food concession, already has its permit to be where it is. They don't want you to be within immediate competition or area that actual vendor is, because it's just not fair. And it's just not a cool thing to do, to be honest with you. You should find your own spaces, fall in line with what's required, and just not do that, okay? Now, you cannot vend also within any residential neighborhood or within 100 feet of any residential neighborhood, except for mixed-use buildings, because that normally has retail spaces and it has retail shops, right? May operate as a caterer in a residential neighborhood, but may not vend to the public. So if you've done a catering job with your food truck in the neighborhood, of course you can obviously bring your food truck in because you're there for a specific reason and you're under catering. Now, the other few things that you cannot do: cannot vend within fire lanes or loading zones, etc. Must observe all, obviously, traffic and parking laws. If an area says you cannot park there with a car, that doesn't mean that you can park there with your food truck, okay? Now, I'll go ahead and just minimize all of this here. I'm going to wrap up the video, but I'm going to add, again, the links for the information that you can go and look at a little bit more, do some more research, will be down below to help you guys out. So keep in mind, these are some things that are sort of basic and simple to know. Getting your food truck up and running in Las Vegas doesn't require rocket science. It just requires patience and hard work, and definitely something that you can do. So if you are looking to start a food truck, let us know down below if there's any particular bits of information that you need help with or you're not sure on, and we can definitely create some content to help you guys out. So if you're looking for a way to create a food truck in Las Vegas, these are the things that you definitely need to get in row, get in line, and make sure they're correct and started. So definitely subscribe. We'll see you guys on our next video. Thanks for watching Food Truck Freaks. If you are interested in creating your own food truck and you're trying to figure out how to do that, be sure to check out these additional resources and our website. Check out the links in the description for more information on how to create a food truck business, successful food truck business that is, and we'll see you guys on our next video.